She thought she could destroy me with a single post. My daughter-in-law went online and humiliated me, calling me toxic, controlling, and unworthy of the word mom. Strangers cheered her on. My own son began to doubt me, and I felt my entire world collapsing. But here's the thing. While she was busy ranting on social media, I had every single message she ever sent me. Messages where she begged for money, pleaded for gifts, and exposed her own lies. And when I revealed them, everything changed. What would you have done if your daughter-in-law tried to ruin you publicly? I never thought the woman my son chose to marry would one day become my biggest source of humiliation. I never thought someone who once sat at my kitchen table, smiling sweetly at me, calling me mom, would turn around and paint me as a monster to the entire world. But if you think this is a story about me suffering silently, oh no, you're wrong. Because I learned to fight back. And when I did, I made sure every lie she spread was drowned by the truth she could never erase. My name is Evelyn. I'm 56 years old, a retired teacher, and the proud mother of one son, Daniel. For most of my life, I believed in kindness, in patience, in giving more than you received. That's the kind of woman I was raised to be, the kind of mother I tried to be. And for a long time, life rewarded me for it. I had a stable job, a modest but comfortable home, and Daniel. Oh, Daniel was my pride. The kind of son who made teachers brag, the kind of boy who grew into a man that neighbors admired. When he introduced me to his girlfriend, Sophie, I wanted so badly to like her. She was young, beautiful, full of energy. She worked in marketing, always talking about networking, social media, and building a brand. I'll admit, most of it went over my head. I never cared about likes, followers, or trends. But Daniel's eyes lit up whenever she spoke, and I thought, if she makes him happy, that's all that matters. The wedding was small but elegant. I gave them what I could, a check larger than I could really afford, along with my mother's necklace, a family heirloom that meant the world to me. Sophie's tears when she put it on seemed genuine. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "Thank you, Mom. I'll treasure this forever." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. For the first year, things were fine. We had Sunday dinners. She asked me for recipes, even pretended she wanted to learn my method for roasting chicken. We laughed together. She sent me little texts, "Love you, Mom. Thanks for everything." I thought, maybe I was lucky. Maybe I'd gained a daughter instead of losing my son. But life has a cruel way of shifting, quietly at first, like a shadow stretching across the floor until you don't realize how much darkness has crept in. The first sign was small. Sophie began asking for little favors. At first, it was harmless. "Can you help cover the gas bill this month? Daniel's paycheck is late. Or we're saving for a bigger apartment. Could you lend us a few hundred just this once?" Her tone was always soft, always apologetic, wrapped in gratitude. I thought nothing of it. What's a mother for, if not to help? But slowly, those requests grew. A new phone she needed for work. A vacation they deserved after such a stressful year. And when Daniel wasn't around, the messages came faster, sharper. "Please, Mom, I'm begging you, don't tell Daniel I asked. He'd be embarrassed." I gave in. Over and over again. Because she called me Mom. Because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law. Because I thought keeping peace meant keeping quiet. If only I had known what she was saying behind my back. It started one afternoon when my neighbor's daughter, who follows Sophie on social media, came running to me, phone in hand. "Mrs. Evelyn, you need to see this." My stomach twisted as I scrolled through post after post, each one dripping with venom. Some people pretend to be generous, but really they're just controlling. Imagine having a mother-in-law who acts sweet in person but suffocates you with fake kindness. Money can't buy respect. Some people should learn that. There were dozens. Hundreds. Each one vague enough not to mention my name, but pointed enough that anyone who knew us would understand. Friends, family, even strangers left comments, chiming in, offering sympathy for the poor young wife with a toxic mother-in-law. I felt my chest tighten as if someone had reached inside and crushed my ribs. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Toxic. Suffocating. Fake. Those words carved into me like knives. I stared at the screen, at her smiling selfies, her curated captions, her audience of followers eating up every word. And I realized, while I was sacrificing my savings, giving her gifts, lending her money I could barely spare, she was out there turning me into a villain. The betrayal was unbearable. But worse than that was the silence. Daniel hadn't said a word. Did he believe her? Did he see those posts? Or had she managed to twist him so thoroughly that he simply didn't care? That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every dinner, every smile that now felt like a mask. My mind spun with questions. Why? Why would she do this? What had I done, other than give? But as the hours dragged on, the pain shifted into something colder. Sharper. I remembered every message she had ever sent me. Every desperate plea for money, every apology wrapped in manipulation. And I realized something she had not. While words on social media vanish into the noise of the crowd, screenshots. Screenshots are forever. I picked up my phone. My hands no longer trembled. One by one, I opened every conversation, every request she had ever typed, every please, Mom, just this once. And with each tap of the button, I captured her lies. I captured her greed. I captured the truth. By the time the sun rose, I had a folder so thick with evidence it could bury her online persona 10 times over. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because if she thought she could humiliate me publicly while begging me privately, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I wish I could tell you that once I discovered Sophie's little online performance, I confronted her immediately. That I slammed the door of my patience shut and demanded answers. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Because when betrayal comes from inside your own family, it doesn't feel like an attack, it feels like poison. And poison works slowly. It seeps into every thought, every smile, every conversation. I found myself second-guessing everything Sophie said, every glance she gave me, every word that slipped from her mouth. The next Sunday dinner was unbearable. Sophie floated into my kitchen as though nothing had happened, her laughter loud, her perfume choking the air. She kissed my cheek, called me Mom, and began scrolling on her phone while I set the table. I couldn't stop looking at her hands. The same hands that typed out those cruel posts. The same hands that begged me for money. I wanted to grab her wrist, shove the phone in her face, and scream, "I know what you're doing." But I stayed silent. I smiled. I let her eat the roast chicken she had once pretended to want to learn from me. And all the while, a storm built inside me. The favors kept coming. Only now, they weren't requests, they were expectations. "Mom, we're planning a weekend getaway. Can you transfer $500 by Friday? The apartment needs new furniture. I'll send you the links, just pick one. Don't tell Daniel, he'd overreact. You understand, right? You're the only one I can count on." I stared at those messages, my stomach churning. Once, I might have believed her. Once, I might have thought I was helping. But now I saw the truth. It wasn't need. It was greed. She had turned me into her personal ATM, and when the withdrawals weren't enough, she deposited lies about me online. I began to notice her tone in person too. That sugar-sweet voice she used with Daniel vanished the moment his back was turned. When he went to the bathroom, she leaned toward me and hissed, "You should really keep your opinions to yourself. You're making things harder for us." I froze. What opinions? I barely spoke at all. But then she smirked, sipped her wine, and said louder, "Oh, Mom, you're always so supportive." Daniel came back smiling, oblivious. It was like watching a mask slip into place, perfectly timed, perfectly polished. And I realized this wasn't just immaturity. This was performance. Calculation. Then came the whispers. A cousin called me, hesitant. "Evelyn, I don't want to upset you, but is everything okay between you and Sophie? She's been saying some strange things." My throat tightened. What kind of things? Just that you meddle a lot. That you criticize her, make her feel small. I didn't believe it, of course, but you know how gossip spreads. I felt the room spin. Gossip. Lies spreading like wildfire, planted by the very person eating at my table, smiling at my son, calling me Mom. And still, Daniel said nothing. Whether he didn't see it or refused to see it, I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I was being painted into a corner. Silently. Publicly. The breaking point came late one night when Sophie messaged me out of the blue. "Mom, I need you to pay my credit card bill this month. $1,200. I'll pay you back, I swear. Please don't tell Daniel." Something inside me snapped. Not because of the money, though God knows I was bleeding dry, but because of the sheer audacity. The arrogance of asking for thousands while dragging my name through the mud for her audience. I typed back slowly, my fingers trembling not from fear this time, but from rage. "Sophie, this is getting out of hand. I have helped you more than you know. But you need to stop asking me for money." The three little dots blinked. And then her reply came, sharp and venomous. "Wow. So now the truth comes out. You've been holding this over me the whole time, haven't you? I knew it. You're toxic. Just like I said. Just like I said." The words burned into my eyes. It was confirmation. Proof. She had been saying it, writing it, broadcasting it. And now she had said it to me directly. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because every cruel word she typed only added another piece of evidence to the folder growing on my phone. But the real blow landed 2 days later. I walked into a grocery store I had shopped at for years, only to feel the weight of stares following me down the aisle. A woman I vaguely knew from church leaned toward another and whispered, not quietly enough, "That's her. The mother-in-law Sophie posts about." My hands tightened around the shopping cart. My cheeks burned. For the first time in my life, I felt ashamed to be seen. Me, who had spent decades building a reputation as a kind teacher, a dependable friend, a respected member of the community, reduced to a caricature in someone else's cruel little narrative. I went home that night and sat in the dark. The screenshots on my phone glowed like embers, waiting to ignite. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just about me anymore. This wasn't just about saving face. Sophie wasn't content with humiliating me online, she was poisoning my relationships, my reputation, my very identity. If I didn't act, she would destroy me completely. And so, as tears dried on my cheeks, something inside me hardened. I began to plot. To plan. To prepare. Because if Sophie thought she could keep performing her little act while bleeding me dry in secret, she was about to learn that the quietest people often make the loudest noise when they finally decide to fight back. I used to believe there was a limit to cruelty. That even if someone disliked you, there were lines they wouldn't cross. But Sophie taught me something darker. When someone thrives on attention, there are no limits. They will feed the fire until there's nothing left but ash. The first time I saw the post, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a vague jab this time. It was personal. Direct. My name wasn't spelled out, but it might as well have been. Imagine having a mother-in-law who pretends to help but actually uses money to control you. Who sticks her nose into every decision, criticizes your clothes, your cooking, your marriage. It's suffocating. Some women don't deserve the title mom. The photo attached? A dinner table. My dinner table. The same plates I had set, the same silverware I had polished. Her smiling face in the foreground, my hand blurred in the background as I passed the breadbasket. My throat tightened until I couldn't breathe. She hadn't just hinted anymore. She had dragged me, our private family dinners, into the arena of strangers, letting them dissect and devour me like vultures. Comments piled up beneath the post. So toxic. Cut her off. You're too young to put up with that kind of abuse. Mother-in-law from hell. Each word was a knife. And I could do nothing but watch as strangers judged me, condemned me, cheered her on. I locked myself in the bathroom and slid to the floor, my body shaking uncontrollably. Was this how it would end? Not with truth, but with noise? My years of kindness erased by a few posts and a smiling photo? When Daniel came by that evening, I expected, hoped, that he would mention it. That he would see through her performance, that he would defend me. But he didn't. He sat at the kitchen table, eyes tired, and said softly, "Mom, maybe you should. Give Sophie some space. She feels pressured." My chest cracked open. Space. Pressured. Words fed to him like poison. My own son, repeating her narrative. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to beg him to see me. But I didn't. Because I knew, if I pushed too hard, I would only prove her point. I would become the monster she painted me to be. So instead, I nodded. I let him leave. And when the door shut, I collapsed into tears so raw they made my throat bleed. For days, I couldn't face the world. I avoided friends. I ignored calls. I walked through the grocery store with my head down, certain everyone was whispering behind my back. Sophie's posts grew bolder. Screenshots of vague text messages, cropped, of course, to strip context, paired with captions like proof of how controlling she is. She twisted every interaction, every word, into fuel for her performance. And people believed her. Why wouldn't they? A young, beautiful woman crying about her toxic mother-in-law makes a better story than an older woman insisting she's innocent. One evening, unable to bear it any longer, I opened our old messages again. I scrolled through years of begging, of pleading, of manipulation disguised as gratitude. And then, I saw it. A transaction request she had sent months ago, demanding $700 for urgent bills. Only, this time, she had accidentally left the screenshot of the bill attached. And the bill? It wasn't medical. It wasn't rent. It was an invoice for designer shoes. I blinked, heart pounding. And then I scrolled further. Another emergency that turned out to be a spa package receipt. Another essential payment that matched the exact cost of a luxury handbag she had later posted online. Piece by piece, her lies began to unravel in front of me. Not only had she begged me for money, she had documented her greed herself. Carelessly. Arrogantly. And suddenly, through the fog of despair, a flicker of fire sparked in my chest. Because while she had been performing for her audience, I had been keeping receipts, literally. And unlike her curated, cropped screenshots, mine told the full story. Every desperate plea, every manipulation, every luxury purchase she tried to disguise as necessity. The pain in my chest didn't disappear. The shame didn't fade overnight. But for the first time in months, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt power. I sat at my desk, phone in hand, and opened a new folder. One by one, I began organizing everything. Her messages. Her requests. The attachments she had accidentally included. My bank transfers lined up neatly with her shopping sprees on social media. By the time I was done, I had a digital timeline of her lies so undeniable it made my hands tremble, not with weakness, but with anticipation. Sophie thought she had the upper hand because she shouted the loudest. But the truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to be revealed. And when it was? Oh, I would make sure she regretted every word she ever typed about me. The days following my viral post were like watching a dam burst open. The comments didn't slow down, they multiplied. Strangers across the country, people I would never meet, were dissecting every detail of our family drama. Some defended me fiercely, others criticized me for airing private matters online. But one thing was undeniable: the carefully curated image my daughter-in-law had built of herself as the victim had been shattered. She deleted her original posts, of course, but it was far too late. Screenshots had spread like wildfire. People had already drawn their conclusions, and her crocodile tears no longer fooled anyone. I could tell she thought if she erased her accusations, maybe people would forget. But the internet doesn't forget. And neither do I. My son called me in the middle of one of those long, sleepless nights. His voice was hoarse, tired, almost broken. "Mom," he whispered. "What have you done? Do you know what's happening?" "Yes," I said, steady, calm. "I know exactly what's happening. The truth is out." He sighed heavily, the kind of sigh that makes you hear the weight of someone's entire life pressing down on them. "You've ruined her," he said. I laughed bitterly. Ruined her. She ruined herself the moment she decided to humiliate me publicly. I didn't twist her arm to beg for money. I didn't force her to rant about me online. She made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. But what he said next nearly broke me. "Mom. You've ruined me too." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The silence between us stretched like a rope, taut and strangling. My son, my only child, my pride, my joy, was standing on the opposite side of this battlefield. I wanted to scream, to remind him of every sacrifice I had made for him, the nights I stayed up with fevers and nightmares, the years I worked 2 jobs so he could have new shoes for school, the college tuition I scraped together, penny by penny. But all I managed to say was, "No. She's ruined you. She's poisoned you against me." He didn't argue. He just hung up. That click, the cold, final snap of the line, was worse than anything my daughter-in-law had ever said about me. It was the sound of a son pulling further away from his mother. The next morning, my phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't him. It was her. She didn't call. She didn't dare hear my voice. Instead, she sent message after message, each one more venomous than the last. "You're evil. You're jealous of me because I have your son. You'll die alone, and nobody will care." I read them all, every word searing into me like acid. And yet, I didn't respond. Because I realized something she didn't: she was unraveling. She was panicking. Her friends had turned on her. Her own family was ashamed. People in her community whispered about the screenshots, about how greedy she looked. She had built a little empire of manipulation, and now it was crumbling piece by piece. And then, the call came. Not from her. Not from my son. But from someone I hadn't expected, her mother. She asked to meet. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. She looked tired, older than I remembered, and her eyes darted nervously around the room before finally settling on me. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I didn't raise her to be like this." For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. "She attacked me," I said sharply. "She humiliated me. Do you know the things she wrote? Do you know the things she said?" Her mother nodded. "I've seen. And I can't defend it. But please. Think of your son. Think of your grandchild." Ah yes, the grandchild. The tiny life caught in this storm of bitterness and pride. My chest tightened at the thought of that innocent child growing up in a house filled with resentment. Her mother's hands shook as she pushed a small envelope toward me. She wanted me to give this to you, she whispered. I opened it. Inside was a letter, written in my daughter-in-law's messy, dramatic handwriting. It wasn't an apology. Of course it wasn't. It was a plea. A desperate attempt to salvage her reputation. She begged me to delete my post, to issue a clarification that everything had been a misunderstanding. She wanted me to undo the damage. To clean up the mess she had made. I laughed right there in the cafe, loud enough for the other customers to turn and stare. She thinks I'll save her? I said. After what she's done? Her mother's face fell. Please, she said softly. If not for her, then for your son. And for a fleeting second, I hesitated. My son's face flashed in my mind, the little boy who used to run into my arms after school, the teenager who once promised he'd never let anyone come between us. But then I remembered his voice on the phone. Cold. Accusing. You've ruined me too. No. She had ruined him. And if I gave in now, if I erased the truth, then she would win. She would keep manipulating, keep destroying, keep using my son as her shield. So I slid the envelope back across the table. Tell your daughter, I said firmly, that the internet remembers. And so do I. I will not erase the truth. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but I stood, gathered my things, and walked out. That night, I received another call from my son. This time he wasn't whispering. He was shouting. She came to you. She begged you. And you still refused? What is wrong with you, Mom? My voice shook, but I forced it to remain steady. What's wrong with me? No, what's wrong is that you've let her blind you. You've let her turn you against your own mother. There was a pause. Then, almost too quiet to hear, he said, maybe you're not the mother I thought you were. And then the line went dead again. I sat there in the dark, the phone heavy in my hand, the silence pressing down on me like a weight. For the first time since this all began, I felt something colder than anger, sharper than betrayal. I felt the creeping shadow of loss. Because this wasn't just about reputation anymore. This wasn't just about pride. This was about my son slipping further and further away from me. And deep down, I began to wonder, had I won the battle against her? But lost the war for him. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the darkness, my mind a storm of memories and questions. I thought of my son as a child, clutching my hand so tightly at the crosswalk. I thought of his high school graduation, when he turned and searched for me in the crowd, smiling when he found my face. And I thought of his voice only hours ago, sharp, cold, accusing, maybe you're not the mother I thought you were. Those words dug deeper than any knife. For days, I carried that wound inside me. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, hoping, praying, it would be him, calling to apologize, to say he finally saw the truth. But the calls never came. The silence between us widened into a canyon. Meanwhile, my daughter-in-law grew bolder. Perhaps she realized I would not bow to her demands, so she shifted tactics. If she couldn't destroy me publicly, she would destroy me privately. Whispers began circulating in the neighborhood. Suddenly, neighbors avoided my eyes at the grocery store. Friends excused themselves from invitations to tea. And then I found out why. She had begun telling people that I was losing my mind, that I was unstable, that everything I had posted online was the rambling of a bitter old woman jealous of her son's new family. It was a clever strategy. Cruel, but clever. Because what's worse than being hated? Being pitied. Being dismissed as crazy. The final straw came one rainy afternoon. I went to visit my son's house unannounced, a basket of soup and fresh bread in my hands. Maybe, I thought, food could bridge the gap words could not. Maybe if I showed up in kindness, he would remember who I was. But when I knocked, it wasn't him who opened the door. It was her. Her smile was triumphant, her eyes glinting with malice. She didn't even glance at the basket in my hands. "You're not welcome here," she said flatly. "Please," I whispered. "I just want to see my son. I want to see my grandchild." She leaned closer, her voice a hiss only I could hear. "You'll never see that child again. Do you understand? As long as I live, you'll be nothing but a ghost in their lives." The basket slipped from my hands. The bread spilled onto the wet ground, the soup container cracked, broth seeping into the cracks of the porch. And then I heard it. From inside the house. My grandchild's laugh. That pure, sweet sound cut me open. I turned back to her, my voice shaking with a fury I hadn't known I was capable of. "You can try to erase me. You can try to poison him against me. But one day, that child will grow up. And when they ask about their grandmother, when they ask why she was never there, what will you tell them? Will you tell them the truth? Or will you hide behind your lies until they crumble around you?" For the first time, her smug smile faltered. Just for a moment. But then my son appeared behind her. He didn't look at me the way he used to. There was no warmth, no recognition. Only exhaustion. "Mom," he said quietly. "Please go." The word shattered me more than if he had screamed. I stumbled back down the steps, the rain soaking through my clothes, my heart pounding with the finality of it all. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the faded photographs on the wall. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, family trips. A lifetime of love and sacrifice. And now what did I have? A son who saw me as a burden. A daughter-in-law who saw me as an enemy. A grandchild who might grow up never even knowing my name. I opened my laptop. The post was still there, still viral, still dissected by strangers who knew nothing of the real pain beneath the screenshots. And for the first time, I wondered, had I been wrong? Had I let pride destroy the very thing I wanted most to protect? But then my phone buzzed again. A new message. It wasn't from my son. It wasn't from her. It was from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously, and my breath caught. It was a screenshot. But not from me. From her. It was a conversation between her and one of her friends, gloating about how she had finally turned him against his pathetic mother, bragging about how easy it was to pull his strings, mocking me as old, desperate, and stupid. My hands trembled as I scrolled. Line after line of her cruelty laid bare, undeniable. And at the bottom, a simple message from the unknown sender: "You deserve to know the truth. She isn't who he thinks she is." I didn't know who sent it. Maybe a friend of hers who had grown tired of her games. Maybe someone who had seen enough. It didn't matter. What mattered was this: I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't the villain she wanted me to be. I stared at the messages for a long time, my heart pounding with a strange mixture of vindication and sorrow. And then, slowly, deliberately, I began to type. Not another post for the world. Not another battle to be fought in the public square. This time, I wrote directly to my son. I attached the screenshots. I wrote, "One day, you will see. One day, the truth will be too big to ignore. And when that day comes, I will still be here. Because I am your mother. And nothing, not even her, can erase that." I didn't know if he would read it. I didn't know if he would believe it. But I knew one thing: this war wasn't over. Not yet. Because the truth, like me, refuses to stay buried. And one day, when the lies finally collapse, when the masks are ripped away, my son will realize who truly loved him, and who only used him. Until then, I wait. Patient. Watchful. Because I am his mother. And mothers don't give up. Not ever.